Commander Diane Everett stood tall on the bridge of the Earthship Horizon. She tried to look calm, but her heart beat fast. Today was a big day. Humans were meeting aliens for the first time. Not just any aliens, but the Zelaxians, a powerful race from across the stars. The ship's doors opened with a soft hiss. In walked the alien delegation. Diane's breath caught in her throat. The aliens were tall, much taller than any human. Their skin was a deep violet color that seemed to shimmer under the lights. But most striking were their eyes, 4 of them on each face, blinking in a pattern that made Diane feel dizzy. The leader stepped forward. "I am High Matriarch Zaravesh of the Zelaxian Celestial Houses," the translator device spoke in a smooth voice. Behind her stood 3 female warriors, their armor gleaming. Diane nodded. "Welcome aboard the Horizon. I am Commander Diane Everett of the Earth Coalition." She had practiced this greeting for weeks. The meeting room was quiet. Everyone watched, the 2 leaders. This moment would go down in history books. "We hope this meeting will start a friendship between our worlds," Diane said. She reached out her hand, forming what humans saw as a simple greeting, her thumb and middle finger touching to form a circle. The other fingers spread out. The room went deadly silent. The Zelaxian guards made a hissing sound. Their head crests rose up like fans. High Matriarch Zaravesh's 4 eyes showed strong emotion. The outer ones went wide while the inner ones narrowed to slits. "You propose bonding?" the translator device asked in a shocked tone. Diane froze. Something was wrong, very wrong. Kate Mercer, the ship's expert on alien cultures, stepped forward quickly. Her face had gone pale. "Commander," she whispered urgently, "I think your hand gesture means something very important to them. The way you held your fingers." Before Diane could pull her hand back, the alien leader had already moved. Zaravesh pressed her long, purple fingers against Diane's in the same pattern. Where their skin touched, a soft purple glow appeared. Diane felt a strange tingling feeling move up her arm and spread through her whole body. "The bond is acknowledged," Zaravesh said, her voice now strong and formal. "You are now Veshita, bonded one. By the ancient laws of the celestial houses, our fates are now joined. Your enemies are our enemies. Your people are under the protection of House Vesh." Diane stood frozen, her mind racing to understand what had just happened. A simple greeting had turned into something much more serious. But what exactly had she done? The ship's alarm began to sound. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez burst onto the bridge, her face showing fear. "Commander, we've got a situation. Hundreds of ships just appeared around us. They came out of nowhere." Diane pulled her hand away from the alien leader. "Hostile?" "No. At least they're not attacking," Maya said, checking her screen. "They're Zelaxian ships, a lot of them. They've surrounded us completely." Zaravesh's expression was hard to read with those 4 eyes, but she seemed pleased. "The Royal Fleet arrives to honor the bond. They will escort us to the Eternal Starlight, our mothership." "I didn't agree to leave Earth space," Diane said carefully. "The bonding ceremony requires completion at the sacred altar," Zaravesh explained. "It is our way." Diane looked at Kate for help. The anthropologist shrugged helplessly. "I think we should go along with it, Commander. Refusing might be seen as an insult." "Can someone please explain what just happened?" Diane asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Kate stepped closer and spoke quietly. "From what I can gather, that hand gesture you made is some kind of marriage proposal or alliance ritual in their culture. And she accepted?" "I accidentally proposed?" Diane whispered in horror. "More like, you accidentally formed a sacred bond that goes beyond marriage. Something deeper. A joining of families or clans, perhaps," Kate guessed. The main screen lit up, showing the space around them. Diane gasped. There were hundreds of alien ships, all massive and gleaming with strange lights. They formed a perfect circle around the small Earth vessel. "Earth Command is calling," Maya said. "They want to know why we're surrounded by an alien armada. Tell them. Diane paused, not sure what to say. How could she explain that she had accidentally married or bonded with an alien leader and now might have committed Earth to some kind of alliance? Tell them we're establishing diplomatic relations and everything is under control. Zaravesh stepped closer to Diane. Up close, the alien was even more impressive. She stood at least 7 feet tall, her violet skin covered in subtle patterns that seemed to shift in the light. The bond we share is sacred among my people, she said. It connects our houses, our bloodlines, our destinies. Your people are now under the protection of the 37 houses of the Zalaxian matriarchy. I don't understand what that means, Diane admitted. It means, Zaravesh said, that anyone who threatens Earth now faces the wrath of the most powerful fleet in this sector of the galaxy. That sounds good. Diane looked at her crew, who seemed just as confused. But it also means, the alien continued, that the enemies of the Zalaxian matriarchy are now enemies of Earth as well. Diane felt a chill run down her spine. And how many enemies do you have? Zaravesh's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. The Draxid Imperium has sought our destruction for 7 generations. They control 12 star systems and have a fleet 3 times the size of ours. And now they're our enemies too? Because of a hand gesture? Diane asked. The bond transcends simple politics, Zaravesh said. It is written in the cosmic laws that predate our civilizations. The ship's communication system chimed again. Maya looked at her screen and her eyes went wide. Commander, we're getting signals from all over the solar system. Zalaxian ships are appearing near every Earth outpost and colony. Mars, Europa, the Moon, they're everywhere. Are they attacking? Diane asked sharply. No, Maya said, sounding confused. They're taking up defensive positions. They're forming shields around our colonies. Kate looked thoughtful. It seems they're already fulfilling their promise of protection. Or establishing strategic positions, Diane muttered. Zaravesh gestured toward the view screen. Your world is now connected to ours, Commander. The stars themselves will bear witness to what follows. As Diane watched the alien ship surrounding her own, she couldn't help but wonder what she had started. A simple diplomatic greeting had changed everything in an instant. Humanity had hoped to find friends among the stars. Instead, they might have been pulled into an ancient conflict they knew nothing about, and it all began with a hand gesture. 2 weeks had passed since the accidental bonding. Diane sat in the large meeting room aboard the Horizon. Her ship was now connected to the massive Zalaxian mothership called Eternal Starlight. The room was filled with tension. On one side sat the human leaders who had rushed from Earth. On the other side were the Zalaxian officials, all female, all watching Diane with strange interest. Let me be clear about this, said Admiral Grace Lynn, who had been sent from Earth to handle the crisis. She was a stern woman with gray in her hair and little patience. Because Commander Everett made this hand gesture, your people now consider humans to be what exactly? Family, said Zaravesh simply. She sat tall in her chair, her violet skin shimmering under the lights. Commander Everett is my bond sister. This makes humans protected by the 37 houses of the Zalaxian matriarchy. Kate Mercer, who had been studying Zalaxian culture non-stop, spoke up. And this has made another alien group angry at us? The Draxid Imperium, said Zaravesh, her voice turning cold. For 7 generations they have tried to conquer our worlds. Now they say we broke the Treaty of Neutral Expansion by bonding with humans. Admiral Lynn studied the star map that floated above the table. It showed hundreds of star systems and the complex web of alliances between them. Many of the lines were now shifting and changing color, so our handshake has basically redrawn the map of half the galaxy, she said dryly. It is more important than you know, said Zaravesh. The Draxid have already sent their war fleets. 3 other alien races have broken deals with them to join us instead. The whole galaxy is changing its alliances. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez entered the room with a data pad. She looked worried. Commander, we're getting messages from 12 Earth outposts. Zalaxian ships have arrived at each one. They're setting up defenses around our colonies. Diane frowned. They didn't ask Earth Command for permission. Permission is not needed, Zaravesh said firmly. The bond is above government rules. It is written in the cosmic laws that came before our civilizations. A young officer burst into the room out of breath. Admiral, Commander, bad news. A Draxid scout fleet just destroyed our research base on Europa. They've announced that any human base is now a target for attack. The room went silent. Admiral Lin's face grew dark with anger. It seems, Diane said quietly, that my hand gesture has just pulled humanity into an intergalactic war. Later that day, Diane stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Starlight. The massive alien ship dwarfed anything humans had ever built. Through the huge windows, she could see Earth, a blue marble hanging in the darkness of space. Around it, hundreds of Zalaxian ships moved in complex patterns, setting up a defensive shield. Your world is beautiful, said Zaravesh, who had joined her quietly. And now in danger because of me, Diane replied. The Draxid would have found Earth eventually, Zaravesh said. They seek to destroy all worlds touched by the Cedars. The Cedars? An ancient race. They spread life across the stars long ago. Both our peoples carry their legacy. Diane turned to face the alien leader. Over the past 2 weeks, she had learned to read the subtle movements of those four eyes better. Zaravesh seemed troubled. There's something you're not telling me, Diane said. Zaravesh was quiet for a moment. The bond between us, it was not random chance. The gesture you made should not have activated the bonding process unless what? Unless we share blood, the alien said simply. The bonding cannot happen without genetic compatibility. Diane stared at her. That's not possible. Humans and Zalaxians evolved on different planets, light years apart. And yet the bond formed, Zaravesh pointed out. Our scientists have been studying this since you arrived. Our DNA structures share patterns that cannot be explained by random evolution. Before Diane could respond, her communication device beeped. It was Kate. Commander, you need to come to the science wing immediately. There's something you have to see. When Diane arrived, Kate was standing with a group of Zalaxian scientists. They were gathered around a strange cylindrical tank filled with glowing liquid. Inside floated what looked like a child, but not fully human or Zalaxian. The being had violet skin with patches of pink. It had only 2 eyes, not 4, and they looked human. What is this? Diane asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her name is Lyra, Kate said. She's half human, half Zalaxian. She was born 18 years ago after a human exploration ship met a Zalaxian science vessel. There was an exchange of genetic material. A human and a Zalaxian had a child. Diane couldn't believe it. It should be impossible, Kate agreed, but here she is, and she's not the only one. The Zalaxians have records of at least 7 mixed-species children born over the last century. One of the Zalaxian scientists stepped forward. We have kept this secret for many years. The Draxid would kill these children if they knew they existed. Why? Diane asked. Because of the prophecy, Zaravesh said, entering the room. It is said that when humans and Zalaxians join in the sacred bond, the children of both worlds will awaken the cedar technology that lies dormant throughout the galaxy. Technology that could shift the balance of power, added Kate. And now the Draxid know about us, Diane said, understanding dawning on her. The tank began to drain. The child, Lyra, opened her eyes. They were green, like human eyes, but with a strange glow to them. The scientist helped her out of the tank and wrapped her in a silvery blanket. Lyra looked directly at Diane. The stars sang of your coming, she said in perfect English. You are the bridge. I don't understand any of this, Diane said, feeling overwhelmed. An alarm began to sound throughout the ship. Lieutenant Maya's voice came over the communication system. Commander, we've got Draxid ships entering the solar system. At least 50 warships just appeared near Mars. Zaravesh turned to her warriors. Prepare the fleet for battle. Wait, Diane said. Maybe we can talk to them. Explain that the bonding was an accident. The Draxid do not negotiate, Zaravesh said grimly. They see only in terms of strength and weakness. They will test our resolve. Then let me help, Diane offered. If Earth is now part of this fight, we should defend ourselves too. Zaravesh studied her for a moment, then nodded. As bond sisters, we fight as one. Lyra stepped forward, her small hand reaching out to touch Diane's arm. The bond is just the beginning, she said. When the final piece is in place, the galaxy will change forever. As if to punctuate her words, a massive explosion lit up the space near Mars. The battle had begun. Over the next few hours, Diane watched in awe as the Zalaxian and human ships fought side by side against the Draxid attackers. Earth ships were smaller and less advanced, but their pilots were skilled and brave. The Zalaxian vessels moved with incredible grace, their weapons far more powerful than anything humans had built. Admiral Lin joined Diane on the command deck of the Eternal Starlight. Our ships are taking heavy losses, she reported. But the Zalaxians are giving us shield technology that's keeping most of our people alive. This is just the beginning, Diane said. The Draxid will send more ships. Then we need to understand what we're fighting for, Lin said firmly. This bond, these cedars, this child Lyra, what does it all mean? Diane looked out at the battle, raging around Mars. Human and alien fighting together against a common enemy. Perhaps that was meaning enough for now. It means we're not alone anymore, she finally said. For better or worse, humanity has joined the galactic community, and our first act was to make both powerful friends and dangerous enemies. With a hand gesture, Lin said, shaking her head in disbelief. With a hand gesture, Diane agreed. The Zalaxian Royal Archives were unlike anything Diane had ever seen. The huge room looked like a cathedral made of crystal and light. Ancient objects floated in glowing fields. Texts made of light hovered in the air. Diane followed Zaravesh through this amazing place, trying to ignore the guards who now followed her everywhere. You still haven't told me why this bonding is so important, Diane said. Why would the Draxid start a war over a cultural mistake? Zaravesh stopped in front of a glowing ball that showed a strange DNA pattern. Instead of the double helix, Diane knew from human DNA this had 4 strands twisted together. Because it was not a mistake, Veshta, Zaravesh said. The bonding cannot happen without genetic compatibility. Kate, who had insisted on coming along, stepped closer. Genetic compatibility between humans and Zalaxians? That's impossible. And yet, it has happened. Zaravesh waved her hand, and the image changed to show ancient cave paintings. 20,000 years ago, according to our history, the Cedars visited many worlds. Your Earth was one of them. Diane looked closely at the images. They showed tall beings that looked much like the Zalaxians, interacting with early humans. You're saying, we share common ancestors, Zaravesh confirmed. The Draxid have always feared this. Their species evolved on their own, and they see all cedar-touched races as wrong or dirty. A soft sound interrupted them. One of the guards came over and whispered something to Zaravesh. All 4 of her eyes narrowed in anger. What is it? Diane asked, worried. The Draxid sent killers to Earth, Zaravesh said. They attacked your family home in the place you call Montana. Diane felt her blood go cold. My sister Olivia and her children live there. Our advance guard stopped the killers, Zaravesh continued. But this changes things. The Draxid have broken the most important rule of war. They have attacked bonded family. Before Diane could respond, part of the archive wall shimmered and disappeared. Behind it was a hidden room where 7 elderly Zalaxian women sat in a half circle. Their skin was lighter than other Zalaxians, almost see-through, showing glowing veins underneath. The Council of Shadows, Kate whispered in awe. I thought they were just a story. The woman in the center spoke, her voice surprisingly strong for someone so old. The bond has been confirmed. The prophecy unfolds. Bring forth the Star Child. From behind the council came a young Zalaxian girl, who looked about 12 years old in human terms. Unlike the others, her violet skin had patches of pink, and she had only 2 eyes, green eyes that looked human. This is Lyra, Zaravesh said. She was born 18 Earth years ago after a human ship met one of our science vessels. There was an exchange of genetic material. She is half human. The girl walked up to Diane without fear. The stars sang of your coming, she said in perfect English. You are the bridge. Diane looked from the girl to Zaravesh in confusion. I don't understand. The Draxid fear us because of an old prophecy, Zaravesh explained. That when humans and Zalaxians form the bond, the Starchild will wake up the cedar technology that lies sleeping throughout the galaxy. Technology that could change who holds power forever. And now, said the oldest council member, the Draxid will do anything to stop this. They will burn Earth to ashes if needed. Diane felt the weight of this knowledge settle on her shoulders. A simple diplomatic meeting had turned into something much bigger. The fate of two worlds, maybe the whole galaxy, now hung in the balance. Later that day, Diane sat with Lyra in a quiet garden area aboard the Eternal Starlight. The ship had gardens and parks throughout it, filled with strange plants from the Zalaxian homeworld. Lyra was playing with a small device that created shapes out of light. How do you speak English so well? Diane asked the girl. I learn quickly, Lyra said simply. I can speak 12 Earth languages and 17 Zalaxian dialects. And what is this bridge that you called me? Lyra looked up, her green eyes serious. The cedars left a path for us to follow. Markers in our DNA that would bring us together when the time was right. You and Zaravesh completed the first step with your bond. It was an accident, Diane reminded her. There are no accidents in the pattern of stars, Lyra said, sounding much older than she looked. Your gesture awakened something that has waited 20,000 years to be awakened. Kate joined them, carrying a datapad. She had spent hours studying the Zalaxian historical records. I think I'm starting to understand, she said, sitting down. The Cedars were an ancient race that spread life throughout the galaxy. They seeded at least 30 different worlds with life based on their own DNA pattern. Like planting a garden, Diane said. Exactly, Kate nodded. But they didn't just leave life. They left technology too. Amazing technology that has been sleeping for thousands of years. The records say this technology can only be activated when different cedar species work together. Why make it so complicated? Diane asked. To ensure cooperation, Lyra said. The Cedars believed that life should evolve separately, but come together in peace. The technology can only be used by species that have learned to work together. And the Draxid don't want that, Diane guessed. The Draxid evolved on a harsh world, Kate explained. They believe in strength above all else. The idea of cooperation as power goes against everything they stand for. Lieutenant Maya's voice came over the communication system. Commander, Admiral Lin requests your presence on the bridge. The Draxid have sent a message. When Diane arrived, on the bridge she found Admiral Lin standing with Zaravesh. Both looked grim. The Draxid Emperor has sent terms, Lin said without greeting. He demands we hand over Lyra and break the bond. If we refuse, they'll use something called a planet killer. Zaravesh's face showed real fear for the first time. The World Breaker is not an empty threat. They used it on Calaxis Prime 300 years ago. Our ancient home is now just floating rocks. How can we fight something like that? Diane asked. Before anyone could answer, the ship shook violently. Alarms blared. Multiple Draxid warships just appeared in Earth orbit. Maya shouted over the noise. They're firing on our defensive line. The main screen showed the space around Earth. Dozens of Draxid ships, dark spiky vessels that looked like floating fortresses, were engaged with the Zalaxian defenders. Explosions lit up the blackness of space. Get me Earth Command, Diane ordered. The screen split to show General Susan Foster at Earth's Defense Headquarters. Commander Everett, what the hell is going on up there? The Draxid have launched a full attack, Diane explained quickly. They have a weapon that can destroy planets. We need to evacuate as many people as possible to the underground shelters. This is because of that bonding thing? Foster asked in disbelief. It's complicated, Diane said. But yes, the Draxid see the bond between humans and Zalaxians as a threat to their power. Then break the damn bond, Foster demanded. Zaravesh stepped into view. It cannot be broken. And even if it could, the Draxid would still attack. They now know. Humans share cedar DNA. They will not allow Earth to exist. Another explosion rocked the ship. Maya reported, "Our outer defensive line is failing. They're breaking through." Lyra suddenly appeared on the bridge. The guards tried to stop her, but she slipped past them. "We must go to the activation site," she said urgently. "What activation site?" Diane asked. "The place your people call Uluru," Lyra replied. "The Dreamtime Rock. The greatest of the cedar anchors on Earth." As if responding to her words, a section of the star map expanded, showing the massive red rock formation in Australia. But the image revealed complex technological structures running through the rock like veins. "The Draxid Worldbreaker will be in firing position in 17 hours, Maya warned. Diane looked at Zaravesh. They didn't need words. Their bond somehow let them understand each other. Whatever doubts Diane had about the alien matriarch had disappeared in the face of the threat to both their peoples. "Prepare a shuttle," Diane ordered, "and contact Earth Command. Tell them to evacuate everyone within 100 miles of Uluru." "What exactly will happen when we activate this technology?" Kate asked Lyra. The girl's expression was both ancient and innocent as she replied, "Evolution." As they prepared to leave, Diane took one last look at Earth from the observation deck. The blue planet seemed so peaceful from here, despite the battle raging around it. She thought of her sister Olivia and her family, hopefully safe in a bunker somewhere in Montana. She thought of all the people on Earth who had no idea their planet's fate now depended on a bond formed by accident and a half-alien child. "We'll protect your world," Zaravesh said, joining her, "as we would protect our own." "Because of the bond?" Diane asked. "Because it is right," Zaravesh replied simply. "The Cedars gave us this chance for a reason. Together we are stronger than apart." Diane nodded. It was time to find out what the Cedars had left for them at Uluru. The view from the Zalaxian shuttle was breathtaking. The ship flew over Australia's red heart, the vast desert spreading out below them like a rust-colored ocean. Uluru rose from the flat landscape, a massive red rock that seemed to glow in the afternoon sun. "Your world has such beauty," Zaravesh said, standing beside Diane at the viewport. "So different from Zalax, yet familiar in strange ways. If the Draxid have their way, this beauty won't exist much longer," Diane replied grimly. The past day had been a blur of preparation and planning. Global communications were spotty since the Draxid disabled 3 of Earth's main satellite networks. The last report said the Draxid Worldbreaker had moved into position on the far side of the moon, gathering energy for its planet-killing strike. "We have less than an hour." Kate's voice came through the comm unit from the command shuttle flying nearby. Lyra stood at the front of their ship, her strange eyes fixed on Uluru as they approached. She had been quiet during the journey, lost in what seemed like deep thought or meditation. "The activation sequence has already started," she finally said. "The bond between you two has been sending the awakening signal since it was formed." The shuttle landed a short distance from the base of Uluru. As they walked across the red earth, Diane noticed the area had been evacuated as requested. In the distance, she could see Australian military vehicles forming a perimeter. Lyra led the way with confident steps, her small hand stretched out as if feeling something invisible in the air. When they reached the base of the monolith, she placed her palm against the warm stone. Diane gasped as lines of blue-white light spread outward from the girl's touch. The light formed patterns that looked like the aboriginal Dreamtime art Diane had seen in museums. But as she watched, the patterns shifted and changed into the now familiar cedar script. "The indigenous peoples knew," Zaravesh said softly. "They have been the guardians all along without knowing what they protected." The ground beneath them began to vibrate, not violently, but with a steady rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat. The entire rock formation started to make a low, humming sound that Diane could feel in her chest. "It's time," Lyra said, turning to them. "The bond must be completed." Diane looked at Zaravesh with a questioning expression. What we began as a diplomatic accident must be finished as a choice, the Zalaxian matriarch explained. The Cedars believed in free will above all else. Their technology responds only to willing union. Understanding dawned on Diane. She extended her hand in the same gesture that had started this whole chain of events, but this time knowing fully what it meant. For Earth, for Zalax, for our shared future. Zaravesh mirrored the gesture, their fingers meeting in the sacred pattern. For our peoples, for peace, for the promise of our ancestors. As their hands connected, Lyra placed her own atop theirs. The glow that had been building within Uluru suddenly intensified, shooting upward in a column of light that pierced the gathering darkness. Kate's frantic voice came through the comm. The Draxid Worldbreaker has locked onto Earth's position. They're firing. The beam from Uluru expanded outward, forming a translucent dome that rapidly spread to cover the entire planet. Similar beams erupted from locations around the globe, from Stonehenge, from the pyramids, from Easter Island, from dozens of ancient sites long respected by humans. In orbit, the deadly energy blast from the Draxid weapon struck the newly formed shield and bounced back. The backlash caught the Worldbreaker in its own destructive wave, tearing the massive vessel apart in a spectacular explosion visible even from the ground. But the awakening didn't stop there. The network of Cedar technology continued to activate, sending pulses of energy into space that connected with similar beacons throughout the galaxy. On screens worldwide, humans watched in awe as thousands of dormant structures on planets, moons, and asteroids throughout known space suddenly lit up, forming an intricate web of light. "What's happening?" Diane asked, staring up at the transformed sky. "The Cedars didn't leave us weapons," Lyra explained, her voice filled with wonder. "They left us a communication network, a way to connect all their children across the stars." As if responding to her words, the light dome above them filled with images, faces of countless species, some looking like humans, others like Zalaxians, and still others with features that combined aspects of both, along with unique characteristics of their own. The Draxid told their people they were the only true heirs of the galaxy, Zaravesh said. That all others were mistakes to be eliminated. But the truth is now visible for all to see. Diane understood. We're all related, all seeded from the same source. In orbit, the remaining Draxid fleet had stopped their attack. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The awakened Cedar network was broadcasting the truth of their shared origins to every world, every ship, every outpost. The revelation was causing Draxid soldiers to question their orders, their beliefs, their very purpose. Their empire was built on a lie, Kate said, having joined them at Uluru as the immediate danger passed. Without that foundation of hate and superiority, it's already beginning to fall apart. Lyra smiled, looking more like the child she was than the ancient wisdom she carried. This is only the beginning. The Cedars left us more than just their knowledge. They left us their legacy, technology to heal worlds, to travel between stars and moments, to create rather than destroy. A holographic figure appeared before them, tall, willowy, with features that somehow combined the best aspects of both human and Zalaxian. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from inside their minds. "Children of Earth, children of Zalax, you have found each other at last. The first reunion of many to come. The great tapestry begins anew." Diane felt tears on her cheeks as the weight of what they had started washed over her. A simple diplomatic gesture, a human hand extended in friendship, had not only prevented a war but had begun the next chapter in the cosmic story of intelligent life. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Zaravesh's four eyes reflected the starlight as she looked upward. "Now, bond sister, we build the future our ancestors dreamed of. Together." Above them, the stars seemed to pulse in rhythm with the heartbeat of Uluru beneath their feet, the first notes in a symphony of civilizations finally learning to play in harmony. In the days that followed, Earth and Zalax began the process of true cultural exchange. The awakened Cedar network allowed instant communication across vast distances, breaking down the barriers that had kept the galaxy's civilizations apart. The Draxid Empire did not fall in a day, but cracks appeared throughout their society. Many of their subject worlds declared independence. Some Draxid themselves, shocked by the revelation of their shared heritage with those they had been taught to hate, began to question their leaders. Diane found herself at the center of it all. As the human half of the bond that had awakened the network, she became a symbol of the new era. Sometimes the responsibility felt overwhelming. Other times it felt like the most natural role in the world. 1 month after the activation at Uluru, Diane stood on the newly constructed platform at the United Nations in New York. Beside her stood Zara Vesh, and around them were representatives from 12 different species from across the galaxy, all connected by the Cedar heritage. "Today we take the first step toward a united galaxy," Diane said to the assembled crowd and the billions watching via the Cedar network. "Not united under any one species or empire, but united in our diversity and our shared origin." Zara Vesh spoke next. "For too long, the children of the Cedars have been divided by distance and difference. Today we recognize that our strength lies not in separation but in connection." Lyra, now recognized as the first of a new generation of bridge builders, stepped forward. "The technology of our ancestors will help us heal the damage done by centuries of conflict. Already, worlds once made barren by war are beginning to bloom again." As Diane looked out at the faces before her, humans, Alaxian, and a dozen other species, she marveled at how far they had come in such a short time. And it had all started with a simple hand gesture, a misunderstanding that had led to understanding. A diplomatic accident that had changed the course of galactic history. That evening, Diane stood on the balcony of her apartment in New York, looking up at the stars. The night sky looked different now. The Cedar network created faint lines of light between certain stars visible to the naked eye, a constant reminder of the connections that bound the galaxy together. "Penny for your thoughts," Kate said, joining her with 2 cups of coffee. "I was just thinking about that day on the horizon," Diane said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "How nervous I was to meet the aliens, how carefully I had practiced my greeting. And then I made that gesture. The gesture that changed everything," Kate finished for her. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't made that specific hand shape," Diane mused. "Would we have found another way to activate the network? Or would Earth have remained isolated, unaware of our place in the greater galactic family?" "The Cedars seem to believe in both destiny and choice," Kate said thoughtfully. "Perhaps it was always meant to happen, but it needed your free choice to make it real." Diane smiled. "Well, philosophical questions aside, I'm glad it happened, even with all the chaos it caused at first." 6 months had passed since the activation of the Cedar network at Uluru. Diane stood on the bridge of the Star Bridge, the first joint human-Zalaxian vessel built using recovered Cedar technology. The ship was unlike anything humanity had created before, partly grown rather than built, responding to the thoughts and needs of its crew. "Final checks complete," reported Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez, who had insisted on joining this historic mission. "All systems are ready." "The Cedar Gate is powering up," added Kate, who was monitoring the strange ring-shaped structure that had been discovered orbiting Neptune. Once dormant, the gate now glowed with the same blue-white energy they had seen at Uluru. Zara Vesh stood beside Diane, her 4 eyes fixed on the main view screen. "Our ancestors traveled these pathways 20,000 years ago. Today, their children return home." The journey to find the Cedar homeworld had been planned carefully. After the activation of the network, ancient gates throughout the galaxy had awakened from their long sleep. These gates allowed near-instant travel across vast distances, technology far beyond what either humans or Zalaxians had developed on their own. Lyra entered the bridge, now dressed in the formal robes of a Cedar interpreter. In the month since Uluru, more hybrid children had been discovered throughout the galaxy. All of them seemed to have special abilities to interact with Cedar technology. Lyra had emerged as their natural leader, despite being one of the youngest. "Your path is open," she announced. "I can feel the resonance." Diane took a deep breath and gave the order. Take us through. The star bridge moved forward. As they approached the gate, the blue-white energy reached out like tendrils of light, embracing the ship. There was a moment of disorientation, not quite painful but strange, and then they were somewhere else entirely. The view screen showed an unfamiliar star system, a yellow sun similar to Earth's, with 7 planets orbiting it. The third planet shone like a jewel, blue oceans, green land masses, white clouds swirling in its atmosphere. It looks like Earth, Maya whispered in awe. And like Xalax, added Zaravesh, the world where it all began. As they approached the planet, their sensors detected no artificial structures, no cities, no signs of current civilization, but there was life, abundant life filling the oceans and continents. No radio signals, no technological emissions, Kate reported. If the Cedars are still here, they're not using technology we can detect. They entered orbit around the planet. Detailed scans revealed lush forests, vast grasslands, mountain ranges, and deep oceans teeming with life. The planet was a pristine paradise untouched by industrial development. I'm detecting something, Maya said suddenly. A signal, but it's not radio or any communication method I recognize. Lyra closed her eyes. I can feel it too. They're calling to us. The signal led them to a large island near the planet's equator. As the star bridge descended through the atmosphere, they saw a vast circular clearing in the middle of a dense forest. At the center stood a structure that looked like a temple, white stone columns supporting a domed roof surrounded by gardens of plants with flowers in every color imaginable. This is it, Lyra said with certainty. This is where we need to go. They landed the ship at the edge of the clearing. When the doors opened, Diane took her first breath of air on the Cedar homeworld. It was sweet and clean, filled with the scent of flowers and living things. It feels like coming home, Zaravesh said quietly, even though none of us has ever been here before. They walked toward the temple structure. As they got closer, Diane noticed that what had looked like stone from a distance was actually a living material, something between plant and mineral, warm to the touch and slightly luminescent. Inside the temple was a single circular room with a pool of crystal-clear water at its center. The ceiling was open to the sky, letting in the light from the yellow sun. Now what? Diane asked. As if in answer to her question, the surface of the pool began to ripple. A figure rose from the water. Not a physical being, but one made of light and what seemed like living water. It was tall and willowy, with features that reminded Diane of both humans and Xalaxians, yet distinct from either. The children return, the figure said, its voice seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. After so many cycles of stars, Lyra stepped forward. Are you a cedar? The figure's light form rippled in what might have been amusement. I am a memory, a record left for those who would find their way back home. We activated the network, Diane explained. The bond between humans and Xalaxians. Yes, the figure interrupted gently. The bond. The key we left to ensure cooperation, rather than conflict. You have done well to find your way here. Where are the Cedars now? Zaravesh asked. Why did they leave? The figure gestured, and the room around them transformed. Suddenly they were surrounded by images of the past, the Cedars at the height of their civilization, building great cities that worked in harmony with nature rather than against it. Ships traveling between stars, new worlds being seeded with life. We did not leave, the figure said. We evolved. The images changed, showing the Cedars gradually changing form, becoming beings of light and energy rather than flesh. As a species grows in wisdom and connection, the need for physical form diminishes, the figure explained. We became one with the cosmic energy that flows through all living things. Some of your kind call it spirit, others call it consciousness. We simply call it the flow. You've been watching us all this time? Kate asked, fascinated. Observing but not interfering. The children must find their own path, make their own choices, learn from their own mistakes. But you left the network, Diane pointed out. The bond, the technology, that seems like interference. The figure's light form rippled again. Tools, not commands. Possibilities, not instructions. The choice to use them has always been yours. And the Draxid? Zaravesh asked. Were they also your children? All life in this galaxy shares our essence, the figure said. Some, like the Draxid, evolved on worlds where struggle and competition were necessary for survival. They developed different values, different paths, but they too are part of the greater whole. They tried to destroy Earth, Diane said, unable to keep the anger from her voice. Fear drives much destruction, the figure replied sadly. Fear of difference, fear of change, fear of losing power. The Draxid feared what they did not understand, that unity brings greater strength than domination. What happens now? Lyra asked. Why have you called us here? The figure gestured again, and the room filled with new images, the galaxy as it could be, worlds working together, sharing knowledge and resources, species cooperating while maintaining their unique identities and cultures. A civilization spanning thousands of star systems, yet living in balance with the natural order. The next phase begins, the figure said. You have awakened the network, the communication system we left, to connect our children when they were ready. Now you must build what comes next. And what is that? Diane asked. A galactic community based not on fear and power, but on cooperation and mutual respect. A civilization worthy of continuing our legacy. The figure moved closer to them, its light form rippling with what seemed like emotion. The bond between your worlds was just the beginning. Now many bonds must form between many peoples. The galaxy is filled with our children, all waiting to discover their shared heritage. Will you help us? Zaravesh asked. Guide us? We cannot walk your path for you, the figure said. But we have left knowledge here, in this temple and in others like it throughout the galaxy. Knowledge of science, of healing, of living in harmony with the universe. Use it wisely. The figure began to fade, returning to the pool. Remember, children, you are not alone in the cosmos. You never were. And when you are ready, when your civilization has grown into its full potential, we will welcome you into the flow. With those words, the figure disappeared, leaving only ripples on the surface of the water. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of what they had learned, of the responsibility they now carried, settled over them. Finally, Diane broke the silence. So, no pressure? Just rebuild galactic civilization, according to the vision of our ascended ancestors. Kate laughed, breaking the tension. Well, when you put it that way, we should begin documenting everything, Lyra said excitedly. There must be so much knowledge stored here. And we need to report back to Earth and Zalax, added Maya. This changes everything. Not everything, Zaravesh said, looking at Diane. The bond that brought us here, that remains constant. Diane smiled at her alien bond sister. From diplomatic accident to cosmic destiny, their journey had been extraordinary, and it was only beginning. Over the next few weeks, they explored the temple and the surrounding area. They discovered repositories of knowledge on subjects ranging from medicine to agriculture, from physics to philosophy. The Cedars had left their children a rich inheritance, tools to build a better future than the past. Ships from Earth and Zalax arrived, bringing scientists and scholars eager to learn. Other species soon followed, representatives from worlds, connected by the Cedar network, all drawn to the homeworld of their shared ancestors. What began as a small research outpost grew into something more. The first truly multi-species community in the galaxy. Humans worked alongside Zalaxians and 24 other peoples,